On today's Home Media Minefield, I'm going to be looking at the Criterion Collection edition of The Silence of the Lambs. Coming up. Hello, I'm Keith and welcome to Home Media Minefield, helping you with information to navigate the complexities of home cinema and home media entertainment. And for today's episode, I'm going to be looking at the 1991 award-winning psychological thriller, The Silence of the Lambs, starring Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins, directed by Jonathan Demme, and based on the novel by Thomas Harris. Now, to talk about some release information, Silence of the Lambs is one of those films that has been released a number of times over the years under different labels with various extras and quality depending on the release. For today's episode, I am focusing purely on the Criterion Collection 2-disc Blu-ray edition, which came out in 2018. Now, I previously did an unboxing of this version, which is beautifully packaged with a 60-page colour booklet, including interviews and essays, in a special digipack with a slipcase, including 2 Blu-ray discs. Now, it's really important for me to point out at this stage that this is a Region A locked Blu-ray set. So if you're outside, you will need a multi-region Blu-ray player in order to play this disc. Now, there are plenty of versions of The Silence of the Lambs out there within other territories. However, they are released under different labels. They're not the Criterion Collection versions and therefore feature different extras, and in many areas an inferior picture and audio transfer. Now, with that disclaimer out of the way, on with the review. Okay, so starting off as always with the picture quality. Not only does this 2 Blu-ray set come beautifully packaged, but it also comes beautifully presented, because the 1080p high-def Blu-ray picture is presented in its original 185:1 aspect ratio and comes from a new 4K transfer from the original 35mm negatives, personally supervised by director of photography Tak Fujimoto. Now, some of the previous transfers over the years have looked somewhat mushy, and even the standard definition transfer on the original Criterion Collection DVD wasn't the greatest. This, I have to say, is a vast improvement, and it's like watching the film for the first time all over again. So the look and style and lighting of this film has a muted colour palette in any case. Lots of earthy tones, drab colours, and use of shadow. And of course, this was indeed shot on film. So there are some grain elements noticeable, but I actually think that that adds to the eerie atmosphere that the film is supposed to give off. The film features lots of close-ups with characters talking directly to the camera to purposely put us in the head of Clarice Starling, the character played by Jodie Foster. I've always really liked the style of this film, and I'm incredibly happy with this high-definition transfer from the Criterion Collection. On to the audio, and this is something else that's had a bit of a clean-up for this release. The audio features 2 tracks, the original 2.0 surround track that the film was originally presented in theatrically, and a DTS 5.1 track that had been created for previous DVD and Blu-ray releases. Now, as part of the supervised 4K restoration of the picture, Tak Fujimoto also mentions that the audio was cleaned up on the original 2.0 track. Hisses, crackle and pop were all taken away to make for a much clearer audio presentation that would keep film purists happy. There are many that argue that the film works best in its 2.0 stereo soundtrack that it was originally released and intended to be viewed in. Having said that, the DTS 5.1 track is actually very good as well and does add some atmosphere in the rear channels. The important thing here is whatever side of the fence you sit with this, you'll be happy because both tracks are clear and work really well. Now onto the special features, and this is great because we really do get the best of both worlds here. On the release history of this, when the film first came out on DVD under the Criterion Collection, it had a number of deleted scenes, an audio commentary track, and an original featurette, all of which were not included in their entirety on subsequent releases. However, those releases through MGM did come with a wealth of additional special features documentaries, and with each re-release seemed to add more extras but not include those original extras. Now on this new Criterion Collection presentation, we get all of the extras from the original Criterion release, plus all of the extras from the subsequent DVD and Blu-ray releases, which is fantastic news. Plus we get something new on this as well. But before I go into all of that, let me say what is not included. So what's missing from this was a pop-up trivia track that used to be on the MGM release, which came up with factoids about the production. Now that was back in a time when that was actually quite a popular thing to do on home media, but nowadays is less so. And to be honest, it's not a massive loss because most of the information that was included in those pop-ups are covered in the wealth of documentaries and featurettes that we get with this. The other things that are missing are the alternative theatrical trailers and the TV spots. On this we just get the original theatrical trailer, which has been cleaned up for this release, but none of the additional trailers or TV spots. Again, not a massive loss. There is also some argument out there about the inclusion of deleted scenes. There are lots of deleted scenes on this, but apparently there are a couple of releases out there with a few additional or alternative deleted scenes. But again, these are minor things. Most of the scenes are included on this. So as a bit more of an overview of actually what is included, on disc 1, which obviously includes the film, you do get a 20-minute interview with American film critic Maitland McDonough. Now this was recorded in 2017 specifically for the Criterion Collection. Now she discusses the significance of serial killers in American cinema and looks at the history of this, and covers everything from Fritz Lang's M through to Terrence Malick's Badlands. She also talks about Thomas Harris's novel and all of the various iterations of Hannibal Lecter, including Brian Cox from Manhunter, obviously Sir Anthony Hopkins from this film. Because it's a newer documentary, it also includes the portrayal by Mads Mikkelsen in the Hannibal TV series. She also digs into some of the feminist views of the time that this was actually made in the early 90s with a young woman in the FBI. It really is a fascinating listen, and I'm glad that this was included. You also get the aforementioned audio commentary, which was actually recorded in 1994 for the Laserdisc edition, and that features interviews with Jonathan Demme, Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins, screenwriter Ted Talley, and former FBI agent John Douglas. Now it's one of these commentaries that is pieced together from interviews from each of those individuals and put over the appropriate scenes in the film, but it works really well and does actually give a lot of information about the source material, the methodology behind the film, and the film's production. Really good stuff. Next up we get deleted scenes, and there's actually 38 minutes worth of deleted scenes here. that help to flesh out some of the character details and plot details, but nothing that stops the film from working wonderfully as it is. But it's great that they're included here. Also included on disc 1 is the remastered theatrical trailer, which I've already mentioned. Okay, on to disc 2, and it starts with a 55-minute documentary that was produced in 2005 and features interviews with Jonathan Demme and Jodie Foster, as well as a lot of behind-the-scenes content. This is the sort of documentary that I miss on newer releases nowadays, because having this kind of runtime really allows for them to get into it and talk about the production, both from the development phase right the way through to the release. Next up is a 70-minute documentary which was produced in 2001 for the 10th anniversary of the film, called Inside the Labyrinth. Now this includes more interviews and behind-the-scenes footage, but this time from many more of the cast and crew members, and delves even more into the production and reflects on the legacy that the film has left after the 10 years since it had been released at that point. Again, really good stuff here. Next up, you get an episode of the Bravo television show Page to Screen, which was originally broadcast in 2002 and runs for about 45 minutes. Now this one actually digs into Thomas Harris's novel and looks at the comparison between what was written on the page and what was put on the screen, kind of as the title suggests. And I always find this kind of thing particularly fascinating when you look at the source material and how it translates to another medium like film. Again, this is another very interesting piece of bonus material. Then you get a 15-minute interview which was recorded in 2004 with composer Howard Shore, called Scoring the Silence. Howard talks about his approach to this material and how the various musical cues relate to characters in the film. Understanding the Madness was a 2008 produced interview with a number of FBI agents discussing profiling practices and techniques. This runs for about 20 minutes and is quite an intriguing look behind the scenes of the FBI. Then you get a 10-minute promotional behind the scenes featurette which was made in 1991 at the time of the filming. And you get 5 minutes worth of storyboards and artwork from the film that is accompanied by music. So you can see why it's worthy of a 2-disc release in this particular case. So in conclusion, I'm incredibly happy with this release. Everything from the way that it's packaged with the 60-page booklet through to the transfer and the wealth of special features. This to me is well worth an upgrade. So that being said, for the picture on this, I am going to give this a 4.75 out of 5. The only way I could imagine this being any better is if they use this 4K transfer that they have to actually produce a 4K UHD release with some high dynamic range treatment. Now this year, frighteningly, marks the 30th anniversary of the film. Now I haven't heard of any plans to release a 4K UHD, but the year isn't over yet, so maybe they will do something with that. But this is available now, so couldn't wait any longer. For the audio, I'm also going to give this a 4.75 out of 5. You get a choice here, an original stereo track for the purists, which has been cleaned up for this release, or the DTS 5.1. Again, the only improvement conceivable would be to go to the effort to do a Dolby Atmos track on a 4K UHD release, but I think that's quite unlikely. And for the special features and bonus content, again, I'm going to give it a 4.75 out of 5. Okay, there's not a lot new here apart from that excellent interview, but pretty much everything else is included from all of the previous releases. I'm missing a couple of TV spots and some pop-up trivia, but it's no big deal. So that brings the total here to a 14.25 out of 15. It's probably the highest score that I've given to anything so far, but Criterion have done an absolutely fabulous job with this release. It's well worth an upgrade, but please make sure that you do have the appropriate equipment to play a Region A locked Blu-ray. Otherwise you'll be shelling out a lot of money to get this release and won't be able to play it. I'll put a link down below as to where you can get this, but I'll also put a link to some other home media releases of this film. And that brings me to the end of another home media minefield. If you found this information at all interesting or helpful, then please do smash that thumbs up and give this video a like, and consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do, please hit the bell notification so that you don't miss anything moving forward. I publish reviews, unboxings, and other content weekly, so please do check out some of the other videos and links that I've included here. If you've got any questions, comments or feedback, or if there's anything in particular that you'd like me to look into for you, then please do also put that down in the comments below and I'll see if I can get to it. Maybe you'd like me to look at other films within the Hannibal Lecter Thomas Harris franchise, for example. As you can probably tell, I love these films, so I'm more than happy to do that. But obviously if there's anything else, let me know as well. But until next time, I thank you for your time today, and I will speak to you at the next home media minefield. Bye for now.